My phone rang while I was finishing up paperwork at the station. It was my sister Lisa, crying so hard I could barely understand her. The HOA woman is here. She's hitting my ATV with a baseball bat. She's destroying everything. My most expensive and favorite. Please come quick. I looked down at my uniform, the county sheriff badge still pinned to my chest after a long shift. This Karen from the HOA had no idea she was attacking the property of a county sheriff's sister. Before start story, please comment down from where you are watching and don't forget to subscribe. My sister Lisa moved into Pine Creek Estates just 6 months ago. She was so happy to find a house she could afford, even though the neighborhood had a strict HOA. There were so many rules: grass couldn't be over 3 inches tall, no cars could park on the street overnight, and trash cans had to be hidden from view except on pickup days. What Lisa loved most was her bright red Yamaha ATV. She had saved every extra dollar for 3 years to buy it. Working overtime at the hospital, cutting back on eating out, even selling her old car, all to afford her dream ride. That ATV meant everything to her. Karen Wilson ran the HOA like her own little kingdom. She'd been president for 5 years and walked around with a clipboard taking notes on every tiny violation. The neighbors feared her weekly inspection rounds. She'd send out fines for flower pots that were the wrong color or mail that wasn't collected promptly enough. As Lisa's brother and the county sheriff, I tried to visit her at least every other weekend. We'd always been close, even after our parents passed. I warned her about HOAs when she bought the house, but she fell in love with the big backyard that backed up to riding trails. The neighbors never connected us. I always came in my personal truck, not my sheriff's vehicle. Plus, Lisa kept our relationship private, not wanting special treatment because her brother wore a badge. Last Sunday started like any other weekend for Lisa. The weather was perfect, sunny with a cool breeze, ideal for hitting the trails on her ATV. She packed a small lunch, filled her water bottle, and headed out to the county trails just a mile from her neighborhood. These trails were completely legal for ATV riding, maintained by our parks department specifically for off-road enthusiasts. Lisa spent hours enjoying the freedom of the open trails, feeling the wind against her face as she navigated the natural terrain. By late afternoon, she was tired but wearing the kind of smile that only comes from doing something you truly love. Her ATV was covered in mud, badges of honor from a day well spent outdoors. Around 5:30 p.m., Lisa pulled into her driveway, planning to wash the ATV before putting it away in her garage. She had just removed her helmet when Karen's silver SUV screeched to a halt in front of her house. "Excuse me," Karen shouted, marching up the driveway with her clipboard clutched to her chest. Her face was already red with anger. "What is that doing here?" Lisa sighed, knowing exactly who she was dealing with. Karen. I just got back from the county trails. I'm about to clean it and put it in the garage." Karen's eyes narrowed behind her designer glasses. "ATVs are strictly prohibited in Pine Creek Estates. This is completely unacceptable." "That's not true," Lisa replied calmly. "I reviewed the HOA handbook thoroughly before buying my ATV. There's no rule against them." Karen's face flushed deeper red. "Well, I'm the president and I'm telling you they're not allowed." Lisa went inside and returned with her copy of the HOA handbook. She flipped to the section about vehicles and pointed to the page. "See, nothing about ATVs being prohibited. Just rules about street-legal vehicles needing to be parked in garages overnight." Instead of backing down, Karen became more agitated. "It's implied. That filthy thing is unsightly. Do you know what this does to our property values? People like you are ruining our prestigious community." "I understand you're upset," Lisa said, trying to defuse the situation. "But I'm following all the rules. Now if you'll excuse me, I need to clean this up." As Lisa turned to walk toward her garden hose, something in Karen snapped. She stormed back to her SUV, popped the trunk and pulled out a baseball bat. "If you won't follow the rules, I'll make sure that thing never runs again," Karen screamed. Before Lisa could react, Karen swung the bat directly at the ATV's headlight, shattering it instantly. The sound of breaking plastic and glass echoed through the quiet neighborhood. Lisa stood frozen in shock as Karen continued her rampage. "Stop. What are you doing?" Lisa cried out, keeping her distance from the swinging bat. Karen ignored her, smashing the instrument panel next, then attacking the engine housing. Each blow caused hundreds of dollars in damage. When she started aiming at the gas tank, Lisa ran inside and called me. "Matt, please help," she sobbed into the phone. "The HOA lady is destroying my ATV with a bat. She's gone completely crazy." I could hear the sound of metal being struck in the background and Lisa's voice shaking with a mixture of fear and rage. I immediately grabbed my keys and headed for the door. "I'm on my way," I told her. "Stay inside and don't confront her. I'll be there in 15 minutes. I made it to Lisa's house in record time, lights flashing but no siren. I was still in my full uniform, tan shirt with patches, dark brown pants, duty belt with all my gear, and my sheriff's badge prominently displayed on my chest. I hadn't even changed after my shift when Lisa called. As I pulled up in my marked county sheriff SUV, I could see Karen was still there. The baseball bat was on the ground next to her, and she was pointing her finger in Lisa's face. Lisa stood on her porch, arms crossed defensively across her chest, keeping the door between them. And furthermore, Karen was shouting, her voice carrying across the entire neighborhood, "If you think you can just ignore proper community standards, you picked the wrong neighborhood. This isn't some trailer park where you can." Karen froze mid-sentence when my vehicle pulled into the driveway. Her head snapped around, and I watched as her expression transformed from rage to confusion to dawning horror. Several neighbors had come outside to watch the commotion, and they too fell silent as I stepped out of the sheriff's vehicle. I approached slowly, taking in the scene. Lisa's beautiful ATV was destroyed, headlights smashed, panels dented and cracked, wires hanging loose from the console. At least $5,000 in damage, maybe more. I noticed Karen had even managed to crack part of the frame. The bat lying nearby had mud and red paint flecks on it. "What seems to be the problem here?" I asked, keeping my voice professionally calm despite the anger building inside me. Karen immediately straightened her posture and adjusted her tone. "Officer, I'm glad you're here. We have a clear violation of homeowner association rules and—" "Sheriff," I corrected her. "County Sheriff Matthews." "Yes, Sheriff," Karen continued, trying to sound authoritative. "I'm the president of the Pine Creek Estates HOA, and this woman has brought this off-road monstrosity into our community." I was simply explaining our rules when she became confrontational. Lisa started to protest, but I gave her a small hand signal to wait. Years of handling tense situations had taught me to gather all the facts first. I walked over to the damaged ATV and surveyed it carefully. "Ma'am, did you cause this damage?" Karen hesitated, then attempted to regain her confidence. "Well, yes, but I was acting in my official capacity to enforce community standards, and she refused to comply." I nodded slowly, then walked to stand beside Lisa. "This is my sister, Lisa Matthews. I'm her brother, Matt." Karen's face went pale. Her mouth opened and closed several times without sound. "So let me understand this correctly," I continued. "You destroyed private property worth thousands of dollars because you believed it violated HOA rules, even though my sister showed you the handbook with no such prohibition?" Well, you don't understand," Karen stammered. "The rules imply that such vehicles aren't permitted. The spirit of the regulations clearly—" "The law doesn't work on implications, ma'am," I interrupted, my voice hardening. "Did you or did you not use that bat to deliberately damage this vehicle?" Karen's demeanor changed instantly. "Listen, this is clearly a misunderstanding. Perhaps I overreacted slightly, but she was being provocative and—" "I have half a dozen witnesses who watched you destroy my property," Lisa finally spoke up, pointing to the neighbors gathered nearby. "And probably some doorbell cameras too." Karen looked around, suddenly realizing she had an audience. The neighborhood watch she'd been so proud of creating was now watching her downfall in real time. What happened next moved quickly. I radioed for another officer to bring a statement form while I read Karen her rights. The look on her face as I placed her in handcuffs was something I'll never forget. Complete shock mixed with the slow realization that her actions had real consequences. "You're actually arresting me? Do you know who I am in this community?" Karen sputtered as I secured the cuffs, being careful not to make them too tight. "Yes, ma'am, I do. You're someone who just committed felony criminal damage to property in front of multiple witnesses," I replied calmly. "The value of the ATV puts this well above the felony threshold." Deputy Rodriguez arrived to take her statement while I documented the damage to Lisa's ATV with photos. The neighbors weren't shy about coming forward with statements. Turns out many of them had been waiting for Karen to finally cross a line. "She threatened to fine me for planting tulips instead of daffodils last spring," one elderly neighbor told Deputy Rodriguez. "She measured my grass with a ruler every week," another added. At the station, Karen tried everything, crying, demanding to call her husband, who was apparently a very important businessman, and finally threatening to sue the department. The booking officer had heard it all before and simply continued processing her paperwork. The charges weren't minor. Criminal damage to property as a Class D felony due to the ATV's value exceeding $5,000. We added a charge of assault for threatening Lisa with the bat. The district attorney was particularly interested in the case. He'd had his own run-ins with overzealous HOA boards in the past. Karen spent the night in jail before her husband posted bail. The conditions were strict: no contact with Lisa, staying at least 500 feet from her property, and temporary removal from the HOA board pending trial. The case never went to trial. Karen's lawyer knew the evidence was overwhelming and negotiated a plea deal: guilty to criminal damage to property with the assault charge dropped. She received a $8,500 fine, 100 hours of community service and 18 months of probation. The judge also ordered full restitution for Lisa's ATV repairs. The HOA board didn't wait for the legal process to finish. An emergency meeting was called, and Karen was permanently removed from her position as president. Several other board members resigned as well, embarrassed by their association with her leadership style. Within days, Lisa received a formal apology letter from the new interim HOA president, explicitly stating that ATVs were perfectly acceptable in the community as long as they were properly stored when not in use. The letter even invited Lisa to join the board to help create more reasonable community standards. The aftermath of Karen's meltdown changed everything in Pine Creek Estates. The insurance company initially gave Lisa trouble about covering the damages, claiming neighborhood disputes weren't covered. That changed quickly when I personally called their adjuster and explained the felony conviction. They not only covered the repairs but added extra for upgraded parts since some originals were no longer available. Lisa's ATV looked better than new when the shop finished with it. She had them add a security system and even got a good deal on a small trailer to transport it properly. Most importantly, she installed security cameras around her property. Not that she needed them anymore with how the neighborhood had transformed. The HOA board elections brought in an entirely new group of homeowners, many who had been too intimidated by Karen to get involved before. Their first official act was to simplify the rulebook from 57 pages down to just 12, focusing on the basics like keeping properties safe and clean rather than controlling every little detail. Neighbors who had barely spoken to each other started organizing community cookouts. Lisa became something of a local celebrity, the woman who finally stood up to Karen. She started taking neighborhood kids on supervised ATV rides on special occasions, teaching them about safe riding and respect for the trails. As for Karen, her consequences extended far beyond the legal penalties. Her husband's very important business suffered when clients learned about her behavior. They put their house up for sale just 4 months after the incident but struggled to find buyers, ironically, because their property had lost value once word spread about the baseball bat HOA lady living there. The day Karen and her husband finally moved away, 6 months after the incident, several neighbors set up lawn chairs in their driveways to watch the moving trucks. Nobody threw a party, at least not officially, but I noticed more champagne bottles than usual in the neighborhood recycling bins that week. Lisa invited me over the weekend after Karen left. She had her ATV polished to a shine in the driveway, no longer worried about parking it where it could be seen. "Want to hit the trails?" she asked, tossing me a spare helmet. We spent the afternoon riding side by side through the county park trails, stopping at the overlook that gives a perfect view of Pine Creek Estates below. "You know what I learned from all this?" Lisa said as we took a water break. "What's that?" I asked. "People who need to control others are usually the ones most out of control themselves," she said thoughtfully. "And knowing your rights matters just as much as knowing the rules." I nodded, thinking about how many times I'd seen that play out in my years wearing the badge. Some people collect power like others collect stamps, obsessively and without purpose beyond possession. Lisa still lives in Pine Creek Estates. The no ATVs rule never made it into the HOA handbook, and these days there are actually 4 other homeowners with ATVs or dirt bikes in the neighborhood. They formed a small riding club that meets monthly. As for me, I still visit every other weekend, but now I come in my sheriff's vehicle. The neighbors wave when they see me pull up. Sometimes they even stop to chat about normal things: the weather, sports, their kids' activities. Not once has anyone mentioned property values. The baseball bat? It's in my office at the station. Not as evidence, that was returned after the case closed. Lisa gave it to me as a reminder. I keep it mounted on my wall with a small plaque that reads, "Justice always has its day." Even small-town sheriffs need that reminder sometimes.